Hey guys, this is Gaijin Hunter. I wanted to do a podcast-like video where I just talk about the Alatreon update and go over why the community is a bit split on its special mechanic. Taking both sides though, I want to talk about why it's pretty cool and also why a lot of players find it not very cool. So just sit back, relax, and let's go through sort of the situation and my extended thoughts. I'm going to start out just by saying that the Alatreon fight is probably one of the best iterations of the monster ever, and there's several reasons why I feel this way. One, the model is the best looking by far, obviously. They also included the fire and the ice state designs, which if you followed me on Twitter, you'll have seen that was part of the original design of the monster, like way back when, but they just never really put that in the games, so that was really neat to see. It's got an amazing remix theme song, like you just have to listen to it. And I think most importantly, it has a great moveset. There's lots of flashy, fast and powerful moves that it does, but all of them are very well telegraphed, have lots of safe spots that you can utilize, and they're fair. So they do a lot of damage, but if you get hit, you know it's your fault. Next up, I would say it's got a special arena with very little distractions, which I love. Makes it, really feel like it's just you and the monster. There's very little of the environment to get in your way. So all again goes into the idea that if you get hit, it's your fault. The idea that you can't just run back to camp whenever you want and fill up on unlimited items, really great, and I think it adds to the tension of the fight. Then finally, the armor and the weapons are amazing. The designs are fantastic, they follow the original designs, they even introduce new weapon types that weren't there before, and the performance of all of them are really neat. So like 99% of this hunt is fantastic, but that one last 1% is where all the controversy comes from, which is the mechanic of the Escalon Judgment. Basically, it is an elemental DPS check that will instantly kill you if you don't hit the hurdle. So I'm going to give you a recap in case you don't know, just really quickly. So the fight has two major requirements that you have to perform throughout the entire hunt. First is the elemental DPS check. You have to deal enough elemental damage to the monster within a set amount of time, or it'll do a super attack that will instantly cart you. If you're solo, you can afford to mess this up a few times so long as you're good enough not to die at the other parts of the hunt, but online with other players, one miss of this wall equates to an abrupt end of the entire quest. The second requirement is that you have to break the horns in order to stop it from switching to another element, and thus making it pretty much impossible for you to suppress the one-hit kill for the next phase. This isn't as hard as the first objective, but trying to line up all your shots to the head could severely slow you down, and that could mess with hitting the elemental threshold as well, and again, that all leads to the one-hit kill. Okay, let's tackle these subjects one at a time. First will be the hurdle of the elemental damage requirement. First, let's take the perspective of someone who likes this mechanic. The game lets you use whatever you want for most hunts, and you can just play defensively and tank your way through most monsters. But for this one, it's a black dragon, it's endgame content, it's near the end of the DLC, they wanted to make it special and different. So it basically requires you to use an elemental weapon and set. This helps bring people out of their comfort zone and teaches them about elemental damage, it gives them the motivation to make new gear, and lore-wise it makes sense as well. The invisible timer for most people who understand elemental damage is pretty manageable, but the existence of it keeps the hunt fast-paced, aggressive, and full of tension. It feels super rewarding to get that special flinch and the message that you have weakened Alatreon's power. Now for the other side, let's look at the people who don't like this mechanic. Many people love that in a game like Monster Hunter, unlike other action games, you're given the freedom to hunt how you want, to use whatever weapon you like, and to compensate with diligent hunting, patience, and planning. To be told basically that you can't use your raw, blast, or status weapon feels unfair and gimmicky. Mind you, you can still get through the hunt with one of these weapons, but it means that every single time you hit that wall, you're going to get a one-hit kill from Alatreon. So you have to eat for insurance, and you have to be pretty aggressive. But this option to brute force the hunt only comes for solo play. The game does not communicate elemental damage like it does for physical damage, so it does feel like you're chasing a goal and you never really know how well you're doing or how close you are. For hunters that simply do not have the player's skill to be that aggressive, the threshold can be insurmountable, and they're basically being told that their play style, which is a little bit more conservative, is simply not allowed for this hunt. Online, a well-done hunt can instantly end 15 minutes later if a team fails to hit that threshold just once, meaning a lot of wasted time. Talking about online, the pros of this type of hunt is the thrill of planning out the hunt with other players. If a quest has Alatreon starting in fire active, then everybody should start the quest with an ice weapon. If Alatreon is starting in ice active, everybody should be using fire sets. Or you can mix it up with the lesser effective Thunder and Dragon, which work on every state of Alatreon. This act of planning out and communicating online captures the essence of what it means to be a hunter with the planning and preparation. But on the flip side, many people simply do not understand elemental damage or the quest itself. They will enter the quest with Alatreon in fire state and not be using the right element. They will bring the team down. An SOS flare is basically a death wish for this hunt. For those without friends that they know by name online, this means that they have to solo the hunt because the average capability of random players just isn't high enough. While the hunt is easier solo and online in terms of that elemental threshold, this also raises the skill level considerably because the monster is always focused on you. And come on, like, people buy Monster Hunter to play online with other people. It's an online game, so it does feel a little counterintuitive. Okay, so that's the two sides of the coin when it comes to the elemental threshold. Now let's move over to the horn break requirement. On the plus side, this finally gives players the motivation to focus their attacks on a specific body part. If you fail to break the horn, it'll go to the opposite element next phase, pretty much meaning you're going to lose if you're online. Luckily, the horns are not that hard to break off, and to compensate for the high level requirements of the hunt, Capcom removed the rare horn drop, the Sky Piercer, so you don't have to worry now about the desire sensor forcing you to do 4 dozen Alatreons just to make one piece of gear. On the bad side though, the game is giving you a set of 2 fail conditions instead of just 1. You can say fine, grind and get the next elemental set, learn how to be more aggressive, and you can get over that elemental threshold to stop that one-hit kill. But if you also fail to target and break the horn, it means that the next phase of the monster will have that gotcha moment, and you'll fail the quest if you went with fire or ice. So it's basically telling you that the quest only has a set amount more minutes left if you fail to break the horn in time, which makes the quest timer a kind of sort of lie. And if this happens early in the hunt where you fail to break the horn and you don't have the other elements, you may as well just quit the hunt and try again because you're going to fail. And that's not something we want to see in a game like Monster Hunter. So that gives you the pros and the cons, the two sides of the community when it comes to this hunt. But I want to dig in a little bit deeper about the philosophy behind what is offensive about a one-hit kill mechanic and why it has a good amount of people, including myself, kind of unhappy. Hopefully I don't misspeak here, but I think we first saw this in Monster Hunter World with Behemoth. And while it was frustrating for many players, it was all understood that this is a monster from a different IP and a different genre of game, so if Capcom wanted to make it different to sort of reflect that, I think people were willing to accept it. The second time, at least in my memory, that we saw the one-hit kill sort of mechanic was Call of Terath. While it wasn't a one-hit kill, it was an invisible DPS timer, and if you failed to do enough damage within some set amount of time, the hunt instantly ended in the middle of the hunt. The thing I found most offensive about this was that DPS timer never went away even if you managed to chase her to the final arena. At that point, I would like to think that the hunters have earned the right to fight the monster, but you can have a very successful hunt going on for 20 minutes and then instantly, boop, it's done, it runs away, over, you failed. So they give you 45 minutes on the clock for the hunt, but there's no way they actually give you that much time to hunt it, so the game is essentially lying to you. And again, you can't see the timer, so you don't know how close or far away, it just pulls you out, and that doesn't feel good. Good news is that for the next siege, the Safi'jiiva, they actually fixed this, which is great to see. And now we have Alatreon. It's got 2 different conditions that you have to fulfill multiple times during the hunt in order to avoid the one-hit kill. What I find unfortunate is that when you play multiplayer, you are already getting the elemental DPS wall inflated to account for more players, but the punishment for failing to miss this wall just once goes from a single cart to the entire hunt ending. This, like Behemoth, feels extreme to me, and it pushes hunters to do this solo, which is kind of against the idea of Monster Hunter being an online experience with other players. Look at it this way, if you're hunting well, the mechanic of the Escalon Judgment really isn't even over your head. It's just a moment during the hunt where you need to chug some potions. But if you're behind or struggling, it just terminates the hunt. So you can argue that beyond adding tension, which it does very well, the difficulty it adds is a bit artificial. It highly favors those who can play aggressive and those with meta sets, while punishing the others. Now, you also have to keep in mind that many players struggle to understand elemental damage as a system, and the game itself never even teaches players about it, nor does it have an option to actually show elemental damage, so no one really knows how much they're doing. So where do I stand on Alatreon? Conflicted. I get that they wanted to force players to use elemental damage, and I think the idea is great. But the extreme way of use it, be aggressive, and hit the head or you fail is a bit too much. But I'm not dumb. I understand that game design is really tough. It's hard to create frantic tension if you don't have a real threat dangling over the head of the players. Personally, and I know playing what ifs is kind of dumb, but I would have rather them just make it so something like the horn only takes or breaks to elemental damage. That would ensure that in order to make its armor and its weapons, that a player would need to learn to adapt and use those weapons, or at least team up with other players who can carry them. They could have added in a gauge to better communicate to players in where they are in terms of progress, or they could have added the option to show elemental damage so that you know how much you're doing when you hit each part. Or they could have lowered the threshold bar by a little bit more when you go online so that solo isn't the best way to approach the monster. I don't know. Anyway, those are my thoughts, and I would love to hear yours. I know this is impossible to ask for people online on YouTube or Twitter or anywhere for that matter, but try to be nice in the comments. I know a lot of people are either very offended by this hunt, or they're offended that other people are offended. So try to just keep your feelings in check. No, this doesn't make the game rubbish. No, it's not a rubbish monster. It is unfortunate for a lot of people who can't clear that threshold, that the bar is set so high. And there's a lot of players who don't understand why that bar is high to other people. They get the game, they get elemental sets, they're better at playing more aggressive, so to them it's like, dude, the bar is not that high, so I don't know what you're complaining about. You guys will never be happy. So I think it's a little bit more complicated and nuanced than that. It's not just, this is right or it's wrong. It's a little bit of both. Anyways, it's very interesting to see them try to do these mechanics, and I think our discussions are healthy if we choose to keep it that way, and I enjoy talking about it because it's interesting. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video and my extended thoughts, and until next time, happy Alatreon hunting. Use ice of fire.